Okay, so where we left off on our last video, we were talking that we had I to the first power is equal to I to the second power equals -1, I cubed equals -I, and I to the fourth power equals 1. So really what we're looking at are the powers of I. And like I said, there is a pattern for the first four powers. Now, you can find any power of I by using this pattern, and it's through using remainders. So what you will do is you will take any power of I and divide it by 4. So let's look at how this works. So it says here, if there's no remainder, then your answer is 1. If you have a remainder of 1, then your answer is I, because I to the first power, wherever it's at, is equal to just I. If your remainder is 2, then the answer is -1, because I squared equals -1, which is very important to remember. I squared is always going to be -1. Then I to the third power is -I. And then if there is no remainder, it's always going to be just 1. So let me show you how this works. So what I've done here is I have taken this and I said, okay, if there is no remainder, the answer is 1. So like for instance, if I have I to the 12th power, we would take 4, divide it into 12, which would be equal to 3. And we know 4 times 3 is 12. 12 minus 12 is 0. So we have a remainder of 0. So no remainder, what is it? If there's no remainder, then the answer is always 1. So I to the 12th equals 1. Now, if we have a remainder of 1, the answer is I. So like for instance, I to the 41st power. You would take 4, divide it into 41, which is equal to 5. And then 5 times 4 is 40. And I'm sorry, that should have been 8. Sorry, let me change that real quick. I just noticed that. Okay, 8. And so, therefore, 4 times 8 is 40 with a remainder of 1. So, remember, if our remainder is 1, the answer is I. So, I to the 41st power is I. Now, what about 2? Okay, if we have a remainder of 2, the answer is -1. So, here if we have I to the 22nd power, we're going to take that 4, divide it into 22. 4 times 5 is 20. 22 minus 20 is 2. So, I to the 22nd power, if the remainder is 2, the answer is -1. I to the 22nd power is equal to -1. And finally, a remainder of 3, the answer is -I. So let's take a look. I to the 23rd power. 4 divided into 23. 4 times 5 is 20. 23 minus 20, we have a remainder of 3. So, remainder of I to the third power, remainder of 3, I equals -I. So, our answer is going to be -I. So that is how it works. So here, if we want to find I to the 23rd power, you see how all of these would work. I've already done 23rd, but let's take a look at that I to the 2006. So what I would do is just say, okay, 4 will divide into 2006, 5, that would be 20. Bring down your 0, 0. Bring down your 6. 4 will go into 6 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. So we have a remainder of 2. So because we have a remainder of 2, then that means that I to the 2006 power equals -1. Because, remember, if you have a remainder of 2, the answer is -1. Therefore, my answer would be -1.